My boyfriend told me I should be grateful he even dated me, walked out of the restaurant with his friends, and left me with the bill, then texted me 2 days later like nothing happened. The waiter had that particular look, the one where they're trying to be professional but their whole face is screaming, "I am so sorry," when he came back to the table with my receipt. $347. I sat there alone in a downtown restaurant in a dark blue dress, surrounded by dirty wine glasses that weren't mine, half-eaten Wagyu appetizers I hadn't ordered, and the echo of my boyfriend of 2 years walking out the door while his friends laughed. The chair across from me was pushed back at a careless angle, the way people leave chairs when they don't plan on coming back. The last thing Ryan said before he disappeared into the revolving door was loud enough that 2 tables turned around. "A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you this long. You're not exactly a prize." I sat very still. I didn't cry. I signed the receipt, added a 20% tip because none of this was the waiter's fault, and I walked to my car in the parking garage where I sat in the dark for 11 minutes before my hands stopped shaking enough to drive. That was Friday night. Sunday morning, my phone showed 13 missed calls. I want to tell you that I saw the ending coming. I want to say I had a plan, that I was calm and strategic the whole way through. But the truth is I was running on adrenaline, bad sleep, and the very specific fury of a woman who just paid $340 for the privilege of being publicly humiliated. And it was the best I've ever spent. Ryan and I had been together for 2 years, which in hindsight feels both too long and somehow not long enough to fully grasp how much I didn't know about him. We had the whole relationship infrastructure in place. Sunday Netflix marathons, awkward holiday dinners with both families, a couple's yoga class we tried once and never spoke of again because we were both catastrophically bad at it. I thought we were solid. We had talked loosely about moving in together that summer. The future felt like a real thing. His name was Ryan Callahan, 29, supposedly a senior marketing coordinator at a mid-sized tech firm in the city. I say supposedly because, well, we'll get there. He was handsome in that polished, knows he's handsome way. Good jaw. Expensive watch he'd once mentioned casually was a gift from his boss. He told good stories at parties, the kind where he was always the smartest person in the room who didn't need to say so because everyone could obviously tell. He made me feel, for a long time, like I was lucky. That was by design. The comments had been there from the beginning. I see that now with the clean vision of someone who is no longer inside it. Things like, "That shirt makes your arms look bigger," or "Have you thought about a different hairstyle? Something that draws the eye up?" He delivered them in this gentle, helpful voice, like he was doing me a favor, like honesty was an act of love. I told myself he was just direct. Past me was adorable. I'm a retail store manager. I've been managing people and systems and impossible situations since I was 24. I'm good at my job. Ryan found ways to make sure I knew that wasn't quite a real job. She doesn't really get how things work in the business world, but he said it lightly, with a shrug, and I let it go because I didn't want to be the girlfriend who couldn't take a joke. He never brought me around his work colleagues. Too professional, he said. Lines between work and personal. I accepted it. My best friend Vanessa had introduced us. She and Ryan worked at the same company, which I thought was sweet. Meeting someone through a friend you trust. Vanessa had told me, before she set us up, that Ryan's ego was considerable, but that underneath he was a good person. Vanessa is a good person herself, which is why she gave him more credit than he deserved. Red flags. I can list them now like a grocery list. At the time, each one had a reasonable explanation I had helpfully constructed for myself. That is what being inside something does to you. It makes you the most creative rationalizer of your own harm. The Friday dinner started with a text. "Come meet some of my work friends tonight. Dinner at Maison, 7:30. I was excited. 2 years in, and this was the first time he'd invited me into his professional life. I read it as progress. I went shopping for a new dress, a dark blue one that I thought was genuinely nice, that I had gotten compliments on before, and spent 90 minutes on my hair with the fancy straightener I only brought out for occasions that mattered. Maison is the kind of restaurant where the menu has no prices and the portions are architectural. I found Ryan at a round table near the window with 2 colleagues. Leonard, mid-30s, with the energy of someone who finds his own jokes hilarious, and Pablo, quieter, with dark eyes that took things in without broadcasting what he thought of them. Pablo would matter later. Ryan looked up when I arrived, 2 minutes late because parking downtown is its own special circle of hell. "You're late," he said. Not hello, not you look nice. He did a half rise from his chair, not a full stand, a performative gesture of minimal courtesy, and looked at my outfit. "Oh, you wore that?" Not quietly. Leonard smirked into his drink. Pablo looked at the table. My face went hot. I said something about missing a dress code, tried to make it light, and sat down. Ryan said they'd already ordered appetizers and looked back at the menu like the conversation was complete. For the next hour, I was furniture. Ryan held court. His presentation, his team, his boss's confidence in him, the account he was personally steering toward a massive win. Whenever I tried to contribute, he talked over me or corrected me with that patient, slightly weary voice people use for children. When Leonard asked how we met, I started to tell the story. Vanessa, the introduction, the accidental first coffee, and Ryan cut me off. "Yeah, Vanessa felt bad for her. I was doing her a favor, really." He laughed. Leonard laughed. My stomach dropped clean through the floor. That is not what happened. That is not even close to what happened. Vanessa had been enthusiastic about setting us up, maybe overly so. She had thought, incorrectly it turns out, that we'd be good for each other. I excused myself to the bathroom before anything showed on my face. In the stall, I texted Vanessa, "What is happening?" She called immediately. I sent her to voicemail. I couldn't risk crying and having the sound carry. When I came back to the table, they were laughing at something that stopped when I sat down. The main course arrived. Ryan made jokes about my pasta, carb loading for a marathon, and bold choice for someone with your body type, delivered lightly, casually, like he was being playful. Each one was a paper cut. I pushed food around my plate and counted minutes. Then the bill came. The waiter placed it at the center of the table. Ryan picked it up, looked at it for a moment, and slid it to me. I thought he was showing me the total. Sharing. Normal couple things. Then, you know what? I don't think this is working. I stared at him. I've been trying to make this work, but I'm just not attracted to you anymore. I think we should break up. I said, are you serious right now? This is how you want to do this? He stood up. He picked up his jacket. He said the thing that I will be able to recall with perfect clarity for the rest of my life. A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you this long. You're not exactly a prize. He walked out. Leonard followed, not looking back. Pablo paused for 1/2 second, caught my eye, and then he followed too. Gone. The waiter came over. I paid. I added the tip. I walked to my car. I sat in the dark for 11 minutes. Then I called Vanessa and cried so hard she couldn't understand a word I said until the 3rd minute. She came over with Ben & Jerry's cookie dough, a bottle of Malbec, and an expression I'd describe as controlled murderous rage. I told her everything. She went through 3 distinct emotional phases: horror, fury, and then something quieter and more calculating. She kept circling back to the work stuff, the presentation Ryan had described, the project he was supposedly leading. She asked me to repeat details, twice. Finally, she said, Sabrina, I don't know how to tell you this, but Ryan isn't who he says he is at work. She told me about the real Ryan Callahan, administrative assistant, scheduling meetings, making coffee runs, doing slide decks for people who actually ran projects. The LinkedIn title, Senior Marketing Coordinator, was fabricated, or at least substantially inflated beyond recognition. The business trips were fiction. The big presentation? He ran the slideshow while his boss presented. I felt something in my chest do a slow, nauseating revolution. 2 years of stories. 2 years of I'm running this account, and my boss is grooming me for senior management, and the team relies on me. 2 years of feeling slightly inferior to a man who made coffee runs. After Vanessa left, I couldn't sleep. I did what you do when you can't sleep and have just had your worldview inverted. I went through everything. 2 years of texts, photos, our shared locations on the iPhone app I'd forgotten we had. The timeline fractures were everywhere once I looked. Times he said he was working late, but his location showed a bar across town. A business trip to Austin during which he'd posted a photo that Vanessa, who'd just been in Austin, said was taken from the company website. A conference he'd mentioned attending that, when I Googled it, had no record of his name in any of the materials. At 3:14 a.m., a text from a number I didn't recognize. Hey, it's Cody, from Ryan's office. Vanessa gave me your number. There's stuff you should know. I stared at it for a moment. Then I typed back, tell me. Cody Marsh had been at the company for 3 years. Marketing department, same floor as Ryan. He was 26, slightly awkward in the way of someone who has decided honesty is more efficient than performance, and he had apparently watched Ryan operate for long enough that the accumulation of it had become unbearable. We met for coffee 2 days later at a place near his office. He was already there when I arrived, turning a paper cup around in his hands. He confirmed everything Vanessa had said, and then built on it. Ryan was on a formal performance improvement plan, what HR calls a PIP, the last formal warning before termination. He'd been caught twice taking credit for other people's project work. He'd CC'd himself on emails he had no business being on to create the appearance of involvement. He'd told clients he was the lead on accounts where he was, at most, peripheral support. And then Cody said, he talks about you at work. He told people you were high maintenance, always pushing for marriage, that you were clingy. He said that's why he broke up with you. I thought about the Pinterest board, the one I had found on Ryan's phone about 8 months in, labeled Future Home Ideas. He'd told me it was research for a client project. I was not the one talking about moving in together. He was. Everything was inverted. Everything I had believed was mirror flipped, and the correct image was right there. Obvious. If I had just looked from the other direction. Cody got a text from their boss while we were sitting there. Something about a Saturday evening project that needed attention. He grimaced. He had plans. That's when it hit me. Ryan's birthday was Saturday. Tina, his mother, sweet Tina, who remembers everyone's birthday and sends actual handwritten cards, had called me 2 days after the restaurant. I hadn't known how to answer. She'd left a message. Sabrina, honey, just checking in. Everything okay between you two? We're all looking forward to seeing you at Ryan's birthday dinner Saturday. I had listened to the message 3 times. Ryan had told his family we were fine. He had told them we'd had a small fight. He had told them I was coming to his birthday dinner. He had apparently told them we had big news to share. I sat across from Cody in that coffee shop, and I thought about Ryan sitting at his parents' dinner table, telling some version of events in which he was the reasonable one, the successful one, the one who had tried, telling his family a story in which I was a footnote. What if Cody needed to drop off documents at Ryan's parents' house on Saturday evening? Cody looked at me for a moment when I suggested it. Then he said, what time does dinner start? I didn't sleep Friday night. I sat on my couch with a legal pad, and I wrote down everything I could prove. I found the Instagram post from the restaurant, Boys Night Out, time-stamped while I was sitting at the same table. I screenshotted the LinkedIn title. I pulled up the photo from the Austin business trip, and with 30 seconds of reverse image search, confirmed it was stock photography from the company's press page. I pulled Ryan's text messages going back 18 months and highlighted 8 distinct lies with dates, cross-referenced against his location data. I made a document. I titled it Record. I saved it to my phone and to my laptop, and I emailed it to myself. Preparation is not revenge. Preparation is just not being caught empty-handed. Vanessa came over Friday night and helped me pick an outfit. I wanted to look put together without looking like I was trying. We settled on a simple black dress. The one Ryan had once told me made me look average, which I now understood was a calculated comment designed to make me second-guess myself because I got compliments every single time I wore it. Saturday evening, 6:15, fashionably late, which would irritate Ryan. I sat in my car outside his parents' house for 4 minutes with the engine off, doing the breathing exercises from a meditation app I had downloaded in February and used exactly twice before. Ryan's parents lived in a colonial in the suburbs, the kind of neighborhood where everyone has a flag bracket by the door. Tina's garden was immaculate. She was the kind of woman who named her rose bushes. I had always genuinely liked Ryan's family. That made it sadder somehow. Ralph opened the door with a big hug. The house smelled like Tina's pot roast, rosemary, and browned butter, and something in my chest did a complicated thing. I would miss this house. I would miss Tina's cooking and Ralph's quiet, dry humor, and Ryan's grandmother, B, who had no filter whatsoever and said what everyone else was thinking. I rounded the corner into the living room. Ryan was mid-laugh, drink in hand, his back to the door. He turned. He went still. For one full second, the mask slipped completely. Raw panic, undisguised, before he assembled his face into something approximating a smile. He crossed the room and gave me a stiff hug. His arms were rigid. "You actually came," he whispered against my ear. "We need to talk privately." I smiled at him. I made my voice carry. "I wouldn't miss your birthday, especially when you've been telling everyone we have big news." Tina made a delighted sound. Ryan's sister Kayla, 26 and constitutionally incapable of pretending to believe something she didn't, caught my eye from the couch and raised one eyebrow. Ralph started laughing and said something about finally getting grandkids. Ryan gripped my elbow, steered me toward the hallway, but Tina called that dinner was ready and everyone needed to sit. My phone buzzed as we took our seats. On my way, 12 men. Cody Ryan sat next to me. He was radiating the specific anxiety of someone watching a controlled demolition happen in slow motion and being unable to stop it. Whenever he looked at me, I smiled pleasantly and passed the rolls. Tina brought up his promotion. The whole table glowed with pride. "We are so proud of how Ryan is rising up." Ralph mentioned the Johnson account, something Ryan had apparently told him about over the phone. Some major deal Ryan was personally steering. Ryan launched into an answer so vague it could have been read aloud at a horoscope convention. Strategic pivots, leveraging core competency, exceeding KPI benchmarks. It meant nothing. It was a word salad dressed in business casual language. Kayla caught my eye again. Then B, 92 years old and magnificently uninterested in social niceties, set down her fork and said, "So are you two moving in together or what? Ryan said you were looking at apartments." News to me. Absolute news to me. The furthest we had gotten on that topic was a conversation about combining Netflix accounts. Ryan tried to redirect. He talked about the company card his boss had given him for business expenses. I asked, very pleasantly, what kind of expenses he was authorized to approve. He stammered, said something about client dinners. "Oh," I said. "Speaking of dinners, Ryan took me to the most incredible place last week." "What was it called, honey?" "The one where you met up with Leonard and Pablo." The color left his face in a single sheet. Before he could respond, the doorbell rang. Tina went to the door. "Cody, what a surprise!" Ryan made a sound like someone had removed his lungs. Cody walked in looking professional and slightly apologetic, a manila folder under his arm. He was sorry to interrupt the birthday dinner, he said, but he had some documents that needed Ryan's signature before Monday. Tina immediately insisted he join them for cake. Ralph said to bring a chair. "We're all family here." Ryan tried to steer Cody back toward the front door. Cody sat down at the empty chair I'd strategically left beside me. Ralph asked, with genuine curiosity, how the big presentation had gone. The one Ryan was leading. He'd heard great things. Cody Marsh had 3 years at the company. He was not a complicated person. He had decided, somewhere between the parking lot and the front door, that he was done helping Ryan maintain a fiction. He shifted in his chair. He said the presentation had gone well. He said their department head had delivered it. Ryan and the team had provided support. Ralph's face changed slowly, the way faces do when the math doesn't work out. He said that wasn't how Ryan had described it. Kayla asked Cody directly what Ryan's current title was. The silence before his answer was the loudest thing I have ever heard in a suburban dining room. Cody looked at Ryan. Ryan's eyes were doing something desperate. Cody looked at his napkin. He cleared his throat. "Ryan is an administrative assistant in the marketing department." B made a small sound. Ralph put his fork down slowly, like he was setting down something heavier than silverware. Ryan moved immediately into damage control. Cody was confused. He had multiple responsibilities. The title didn't reflect his actual role. Org charts were complicated, but the dam had broken and the family had questions. Specific questions. When exactly did the promotion happen? Who was on his team? What was the corner office he'd described? Each question dismantled another section of the structure. Ryan kept looking at me with an expression that said, "This is your fault." And I looked back with an expression that said, "You did this entirely yourself." I took a breath. I told them about Friday night. All of it in order. The invitation I'd been excited about, the comments about my outfit, the hour of being talked over and condescended to, the jokes about my food, the bill landing in front of me. I told them what he said when he walked out. Ryan interrupted 5 times. His father shut him down 4. Ryan's defense, when he finally got to present it, was that I was playing the victim, that I had embarrassed him in front of his colleagues, that leaving me with the bill was, and I want to be precise here, teaching me financial responsibility. B snorted. Cody, who had been quiet, took out his phone. He pulled up texts from Pablo, screenshots of a conversation from the night of the dinner, in which Ryan told Pablo that he had handled me, that he'd put her in her place, that it was overdue. Pablo had saved everything. Tina walked in with the birthday cake just as Ryan stood up. What followed was not a calm denial. It was a full collapse. He accused me of turning his family against him. He called Cody a traitor. He swept his arm across the table and knocked his water glass over, and then he pointed at me, and in front front of his mother and his father and his grandmother and his sister, he said the exact same words from the restaurant. "A girl like you should be grateful anyone even bothered," his mother gasped. B said something in what I believe was a mild oath. Kayla shook her head with the bone-deep weariness of someone who has been watching this behavior for 29 years. I stayed very still. When the room was quiet enough, I said, "The only thing I'm grateful for is finally seeing who you actually are." Ryan slammed the door on his way out. One of Tina's decorative plates fell off the wall and cracked clean in half. We ate the birthday cake without him. Tina, Ralph, Kayla, B, Cody, and me. The birthday boy's ex-girlfriend, his co-worker, and his family. In any other configuration, this would have been the most uncomfortable dessert in recorded history. Somehow it wasn't. Tina kept apologizing. Ralph barely spoke. B had a second slice and said Ryan had always needed someone to tell him no. In the kitchen afterward, while I helped Tina wrap the leftovers, she asked me quietly if there had been signs earlier. I said yes. I said I had explained them away because I wanted to believe the best. She looked at the plate she was covering with saran wrap for a long moment. Then she said, "I think I've been doing the same thing." Ralph stopped me by the front door on my way out. He was a man of few words and he chose them carefully. He said he was sorry for what Ryan had done, and he said he didn't know where they'd gone wrong, and he said he was grateful I'd been honest. Cody walked me to my car. The night air was cool. The neighborhood was quiet. He told me that Ryan's termination was likely. He'd been on a PIP for 6 weeks, and the social fallout from tonight would reach the office by Monday morning. Someone had already screen-grabbed Ryan's Instagram, the boys' night out post, the surrounded by snakes subtweet he'd posted from the parking lot while the pot roast was being served. I thanked Cody for coming. He said he couldn't watch someone else cover for Ryan's lies while I sat at a restaurant paying $347 for Wagyu I hadn't ordered. I drove home in the strange peace of someone who has been carrying something very heavy and has finally, correctly, set it down. Sunday morning, 8:43 a.m., 13 missed calls. I made coffee first. Then I sat down and looked at the notifications. 5 from Tina, 3 from Kayla, 2 from Cody, 3 from numbers I didn't recognize, which I would later learn were Pablo, one of Ryan's cousins, and Tina's neighbor, who had apparently witnessed something in the driveway. I called Tina. She picked up on the first ring. She sounded like she hadn't slept. After leaving his parents' house, Ryan had gone to an ex-girlfriend's apartment at 1:48 a.m., drunk, and pounded on the door until she called Kayla. He had spent the night sending threatening messages to Cody. "You'll regret this. I'll bury you," which Cody screenshotted and forwarded to HR before 9 a.m. He had posted a Facebook status about snakes and betrayal. He had sent Pablo, the same Pablo who had sat across from me at dinner and said nothing, a message containing my home address. Pablo called Tina immediately. That's why she'd been calling since 7 a.m. 30 minutes later, Tina and Kayla were at my apartment with coffee and pastries from the bakery near their house, which was the most surreal domestic detail of an already surreal situation. We sat at my kitchen table, the one with the wobbly leg I keep meaning to fix, while they told me the rest. Kayla said this wasn't new. In college, Ryan had told everyone he'd made the baseball team when he'd been cut at tryouts. There was a girl he'd told his friends he was seeing who had no idea who he was. A pattern of constructed identity going back years, each fiction slightly larger than the last. An architecture of invented achievement that required constant maintenance and eventually, inevitably, collapsed. My doorbell rang. Cody. He'd driven over because Ryan had texted him that morning saying he was coming to see me, and Cody didn't want me to be alone. So there we were. Ryan's ex-girlfriend, his mother, his sister, and his co-worker in my living room on a Sunday, figuring out logistics. It would have been absurd if it hadn't been immediately interrupted by the building intercom. My building manager, Gary, slightly embarrassed, explained through the speaker that a man had been in the lobby demanding to be let up, had been refused, had then stood outside the glass doors shouting loud enough for the entire ground floor to hear, and had eventually left the property. Tina covered her face with her hands. I called the non-emergency police line. I spoke to Officer Diana Reyes, 3 years with the downtown precinct, who took my account and advised me to document the address message from Pablo's forward, which constituted, in her assessment, a potential harassment complaint, and to call 911 if Ryan returned. She gave me her direct number. Then my phone buzzed. Ryan had tagged me in an Instagram story. It was a photo of me from early in our relationship, asleep on his couch, mouth open. Unflattering in the specific way that unconscious faces are unflattering. Captioned, "Miss Perfect, who ruined my birthday, isn't so perfect. A girl like you should be grateful anyone took pictures of you at all." I looked at it for about 4 seconds. Then I laughed, genuinely, out loud. Cody stared at me. Tina looked up. Kayla's mouth twitched. That was his revenge. That was the worst he had. A slightly unflattering photo from 2022. I was going to be fine. 30 minutes later, pounding on my apartment door, Ryan's voice slurred, telling me to open up. My neighbor across the hall opened her door and audibly said, "Oh my God," before closing it again. I called building security. One of the unadvertised benefits of a slightly expensive apartment is a 24-hour security desk. And Terrence, who had been doing this job for 11 years and had the unruffled competence to show for it, arrived in 4 minutes and removed Ryan from the floor. He was escorted out of the building and told that if he returned, police would be called. He went to the parking lot. Tina went down and handled it. I watched from my window. I couldn't hear what she said. Whatever it was, it worked. Ralph came to pick them both up. I watched the car pull out from the lot. I watched until the taillights disappeared. Then I went and sat on my couch, and Cody sat on the other end, and we split a bottle of Pinot Grigio I'd been saving and didn't say anything for a long time. Ryan was terminated on Tuesday. He had not shown up Monday. He had sent 3 emails to members of his team between midnight and 6 a.m. that HR classified classified as violating the company's conduct policy. The PIP had already set the stage. The emails were the final act. He moved back to his parents' house, Kayla told me. Then, after 6 weeks of what Tina described only as very difficult conversations, he moved to his uncle's place in Raleigh, North Carolina, with the understanding that therapy was a condition of ongoing family financial support. His social media went quiet. I know this because Kayla and I have stayed in touch. We get coffee every few weeks. She is funny and direct and deeply tired of being the sibling who always saw through Ryan but was never believed. We do not talk about Ryan very often. We talk about her job and my store and the bad TV we're both watching and whether the bakery near her parents' house has gotten better or worse since they changed owners. It has gotten marginally worse, for the record. The croissants are fine, but the almond tarts are not what they were. Tina still sends me holiday cards. It's a little awkward. It is also sweet enough that I keep them. Pablo reached out about 3 weeks after the birthday dinner. He apologized for not saying anything at the restaurant. He said he hadn't known Ryan was going to do what he did, and that he had felt sick about it since. I told him I appreciated him forwarding my address message to Tina. He said that was the least he could do. We are not friends, but we are not enemies, which feels like the appropriate resolution for someone who sat across from me while my 2-year relationship detonated over Wagyu appetizers. Cody and I grab lunch sometimes. Vanessa keeps trying to make it into something else. It is not something else, but it is a genuine friendship built on having witnessed something terrible together, which is a surprisingly solid foundation. My apartment feels different now. I rearranged the furniture 2 weeks after everything happened, moved the couch to the other wall, got a new rug, put a plant on the shelf where Ryan's things used to live. Small changes, but they matter. Spaces hold memory, and sometimes you have to physically rearrange them to let the air in. I think about the restaurant sometimes, about sitting alone at that table, about the waiter's face, about signing a $347 receipt for food I hadn't ordered while 2 tables away. Couples ate and laughed and had no idea. I think about Ryan's face when he walked into his parents' dining room and saw me sitting there. I think about what he expected, for me to disappear quietly, to absorb it, to be grateful for 2 years of being made to feel like less than I was, and to say nothing. I think about the moment I understood that the cruelest thing he did that night at the restaurant wasn't leaving me with the bill. It was the lie he told his family afterward. The bill was humiliating. The bill was a power move, a public declaration of contempt. But the lie, the little fight, she's coming to dinner, we have big news. That was the part that revealed the whole shape of him. Because the lie meant he wasn't done using me. He had humiliated me, and then tried to use my silence, my absence, my dignity, to paper over what he'd done. He wanted to keep the story under his control. He forgot that I had a voice. He forgot that I would use it. He forgot that I had spent 2 years being told I should be grateful, and I had finally completely stopped believing him.